arrived. Actually heading to Tampa next week. I actually kind of forgot about that.
Perfect time.
Yeah, perfect timing. It's going to be nice and much warmer than where I'm at right now, which is like 30 degrees. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, so I'm in San Jose and it's quite sunny today. So, after that, those weeks of rain, we finally have some sun. Although we don't want to complain because we need a lot of rain.
Yeah, I'm in Ohio and it looks nice and sunny outside, but that's actually the snow that's just kind of blazing.
It's just kind of like providing like this light amplification.
Yeah. So, Pavni, can you introduce yourselves and tell us all about yourself, what you do, and kind of what we're talking about today?
Great. Yeah. So, first of all, thanks for inviting me over. I'm representing my team, and we've worked, over the past few months and couple of years on this product, which is Amazon OpenSearch Serverless. Amazon OpenSearch Serverless is another deployment option for Amazon OpenSearch Service.
Now, real quick, what is Amazon OpenSearch? For those that aren't familiar with the service and maybe hearing about it for the first time, if you were stuck in an elevator and had to tell me what it was, what would it be?
Yeah, so Amazon OpenSearch Service is a service that makes it easy for you to run search and analytics workloads. Right, so there are two predominant use cases for that Amazon OpenSearch Service supports. One is the search use case, which is you could have, think of it as when you're searching through your documents or you're searching a catalog, likelihood that it's backed by Amazon OpenSearch Service. So OpenSearch is a search engine, right, and it's a distributed search engine that's used in the backend for search applications, and it's also widely used for log analytics.
And so, coming from a security background, looking at logs, and we've set up a couple of things with OpenSearch to query, things like VPC flow logs and CloudTrail logs, just to kind of provide insight to, if a security event were to occur, we can understand what happened and how it happened. And with the OpenSearch serverless general availability coming around, how is that going to solve a problem that you might not have known you even had, to where serverless addresses that?
So the biggest thing is so first of all, it's used as a platform for log analytics and for search, right? So when we're talking about that, customers want to focus on their business applications without really having to manage the backend, right? So there's a lot that goes on in the backend. You have to monitor the clusters. You really need to make sure you have the right sizing for your clusters, and that it can actually be available even for your peak workloads, where the peak workloads could be unpredictable, right? So with OpenSearch Serverless, you don't have to worry about any of those. All you need to do is just push traffic to an endpoint and start searching and analyzing for your results.
And I know one of the things that I've run into in using any sort of tool that does data analytics and allows you to search the data is sometimes if you have too many individuals searching data and maybe have broad queries to search large amounts of data, they run into maybe performance throttling, or their job may be queued up and it might take some time for them to get an answer back from the data that they're searching from. Is this going to be addressing that?
Yes, exactly. So that's exactly the use case, right? When they have to search for something, you really don't know how much system resources it's going to consume, right? When you push a query. So you need something behind the scenes that can actually, help you scale based on the requirements.
Okay. And I believe you might have some like visualizations for this, or we have a nice little slide deck that we could show for folks to kind of keep track of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we spoke about, we already have today Amazon OpenSearch Service. It's widely used for, like you mentioned, it could be security analytics, it could be operational log analytics, as well as It's also used as a search engine, so for searching your catalog, internal documents, or the documents on the web, right? Today, customers already use, managed clusters, right, where they basically get an option to pick their, the EC2 instances, the storage types. They can really help, configure it based on what's best for their applications, right? But it does require sometimes some expertise in OpenSearch internals, right? So there's a lot of, how the data is managed. We have sharding, and then we have indexing. So how do you manage the index lifecycle? How do you know, when to increase the number of shards and when to decrease them, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I was just about to ask you, with regular OpenSearch, what are the types of choices you have to make when you're setting it up? And this shot explains it perfectly.
Right, right, exactly. So I mean, this is super powerful because customers now do have a real good, handle on their configurations, right? But then we did have like a good subset of customers that came back and said, we love OpenSearch, we love the query, the powerful query it provides, the query engine it provides, but we really don't want to be managing those clusters, or and some of them don't even know how their traffic patterns are. For example, they don't have control on the query patterns. I gave this example even last time, as one of the customers said, hey, if there is a world event, right, suddenly we our query rates go from few hundreds or few thousands to hundreds and thousands. So instead of always basically being prepared for that, we want you to take over that responsibility so that we are just focusing on our business applications and making sure there's always availability for our customers.
Sorry, I'm chuckling because I remember being the individual responsible for crashing a search cluster because the servers were not provisioned. Well, I should just say that my queries weren't provisioned to what the
Oh,
cluster was for. And I guess, doing real time searches with very broad searches isn't the best thing to do. But you're right, provisioning can be both scientific and a huge guessing game.
yeah.
And it sounds like serverless is allowing you to going to allow you to like scale that up because you're right. These administrators or individuals responsible for bringing these technologies or applications, they're not going to know what everyone's going to be searching for. They don't know how frequent they're going to be indexing data, especially when it comes to data that is very high in transactions, like thinking Kinesis Firehose.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, we do actually work with Kinesis Firehose. People do use that as one of the ingestion pipelines to load data into OpenSearch Serverless or OpenSearch Service, the managed clusters.
See?
Yeah, you know it all. So going back to OpenSearch Serverless, right? I think the biggest thing you can think of is, as we said, the messaging is you don't have to worry about sharding, you don't have to worry about sizing, you don't have to worry about tuning, right? And you don't have to, for example, you don't have to really monitor the thread pool queues and or the hot shards. All that is taken care of by the system. Right? The goal here is that the system is able to handle both the scale and the size, right? Which what I mean by that is it can automatically, based on your workloads, be able to predict how much size you need and then scale accordingly, right?
See, that's great because again, so prior life of Kyle before AWS, I was responsible for said like logging searching tool, and one of the things I distinctly remember is as log sources would grow and adoption of using this tool would grow among within the company, having to increase the size of indexers as far as CPU and memory
Yeah.
utilization, sometimes even network I/O, and then also the performance of the different components for this and being able to scale that up if you have a team that wants to create very broad queries all of a sudden. You're not necessarily going to over provision all of your infrastructure just for that specific use case that might be only an hour. Let serverless technologies do that for you and then bring it back down. So it's a much more cost optimized solution overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the tenets, right? OpenSearch is widely popular. It's already used by thousands of customers, hundreds and thousands of customers, especially, because we have already the existing OpenSearch project, which is open source, as well as the managed clusters, right? Which is basically we're providing a managed cluster option for customers that want to leverage the open source technology. So one of the tenets when we were developing this was that we should always have compatibility with the existing clients, the pipelines, and the APIs, so that customers are already familiar with those APIs. So it becomes really easy for them to migrate their workloads.
So those that are already familiar with OpenSearch, there's not going to be a huge barrier to adoption for them.
Exactly.
It's going to be pretty easy to on ramp for them to utilize these new fun functionalities.
Correct. Exactly.
New fun functionality. That's a tongue twister.
Funny, on the old version, you mentioned setting up the managed clusters, and
Mhm,
you had to put in a lot of options. What?
mhm.
How do you set up the new serverless option? Is it just start it up? I mean, you mentioned earlier just send information to an API, but like, is the setup much easier? Are there
Yeah.
still any decisions you need to make up front?
There are, and I'll be walking you through the setup.
Oh,
Uh,
perfect.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But before that, I just wanted to talk through, what are the innovations, right? How is it different from the existing solution already available? And how do we meet the scale and performance requirements? If that's okay, I can.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So OpenSearch is a monolithic application. So first and foremost, what we did is to be able to scale and efficiently for our customers' workloads, we decoupled the storage and the compute. So once we basically what you think about OpenSearch is now in serverless, it's multiple microservices that are communicating with each other, right? That really helped us basically decouple the indexing and search pipeline. So some great examples, based on what we've been talking so far, is in log analytics, there's more, you're ingesting the data or indexing the data continuously, but the query rate is not significant. So sometimes customers or you can anticipate a sudden burst in logging activities, and that will start impacting your indexing capabilities. Not only that, if in a cluster world, what happens is even your search gets impacted because now most of the resources are trying to basically as quickly as possible index the data, right? Similarly, in search world, we see that indexing is well, typical search world, let me just put it that way. You see that customers index just once, right? But you do see a lot more query rate. I mean, think about going to website and searching. There's so many visitors visiting that website and searching the catalog or for some information. In such cases, you can suddenly expect sudden spikes in search queries, whereas the indexing rate is really not affected, right? So in those cases, if you're really tightly coupled, what happens is you have to scale both, and you have to scale more to be able to, meet your customer requirements. Now that we've decoupled it, the benefit we have is that, you can have indexing, just, increase the indexing rate. Once there's an increase in indexing rate, just keep adding more compute nodes to the indexing pipeline while the search remains unaffected, and vice versa.
So
Right?
when Kyle accidentally triggers a DDoS attack and the VPC flow logs just go crazy, this is going to expand
Yeah.
as needed.
As
Sorry,
needed
sorry, Kyle.
until the capacity unit that you've configured, right? So we do know that such things may happen, and you don't want runaway bills to just keep
Sure.
increasing or accruing because of one of those rogue hosts or some actions or
So, so if
mistakes.
someone happens to Kyle up the system, you do have a capacity limit to where you
Yes.
you can say, okay, only bloat this big, but don't go any further. So that's good. So no one accidentally runs up a large bill.
Yeah.
But that is really cool. Uh,
And I really wanted to go through, there's a lot we could go through, but, I know that Jeff has already asked for the configuration to show how simple it is. So I'm just going to go through 2 slides
All right.
because this sort of also explains, how it's been built to, to handle failures, AZ or any other hardware failures. How do we manage that? And also how customers are getting durability, right? That's one of the popular asks for OpenSearch as well. So as we ingest the data, given that we mentioned we have now a separate indexing pipeline, it hits the gateway. Gateway is basically looking for authentication. Once the user is authenticated, then you basically send the data to what we call as collections. Collection is, just think of it as, it's a collection of indices where you're storing your information so that you can query later, right? These indexing nodes, they're backed by OCUs, right? Which is, we call it a OpenSearch compute unit. These are just capacity units, right? And the OCUs are performing the operations, which is indexing operations. And then what we do is we store the leucine segments or the index data in S3. Now, S3 provides you the 11 nines durability, the Amazon S3. And that's how we're providing durability to the customers. Additionally, what we do is we always have indexing nodes in active and standby modes. What that means is if the active node goes down, the standby immediately takes over so that your indexing operation is not affected. And the next we do is the search nodes are reading from S3, right? So S3 becomes, the source of truth where the search nodes are reading from S3, and any new updates, obviously the coordinator gets notified, and then, we're pulling the new updated data into these OCUs. So when there is a search query, it hits the gateway, and then, back again, goes to the collection, and you basically, scan the data and perform aggregation. So whatever query requests are, and then provide the data back, the results back to the customer.
So that's another thing for performance is, having indexing and search on two separate, pieces of compute is very important for those that are new to the logging world. Unless if you want to have painful search responses, having them all on one is not the way to go. I promise you. Ask me and I'll tell you, kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
And so we have your console up here, and
Great.
you mentioned you're going to show us how to create, OpenSearch utilizing serverless. Now, I will tell you, doing demos is always a fun adventure when we're doing it live. So we're going to have to channel all the higher powers of the demos, but
Yeah.
if it's as easy as it sounds, we should be pretty well off here.
Our audience did help us with our last demo. That seemed to go off pretty well. So,
That did.
audience, if you can kind of channel to the divine.
Yes, absolutely.
There we go.
Yeah.
No, I think we definitely need that.
So this is neat. Right from the very beginning, we see managed clusters or serverless right on the main
Exactly.
page.
Right. And that's because, as I mentioned, we see use cases for both, right? There's a big segment that would continue using managed clusters, and there's going to be a pretty good segment of customers using serverless as well. So, okay.
Yay, security.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can imagine maybe if it's like reading, like maybe a conveyor belt in a manufacturing plant that it's operating at a speed that's set, and it's a sensor. It's never, that data set's never going to grow. You're going to know exactly what to search from. But
Exactly.
if it's something more dynamic, then we can talk. Maybe serverless makes more sense there.
Absolutely. So here we have, as we mentioned, collections is nothing but, group of indices working together to support a workload. So we go ahead with let's just take the wizard to create collection. So here we get started. We can say demo on air. And this is the other thing that's interesting, which is we have two types of collections. It's time series and search. Again, it ties back to the target use cases or the most predominant use cases, which is time series represents semi-structured machine-generated data in real time. For example, log analytics, security analytics, events. These are some of the use cases that fall under time series. And then we have search, which is again, as the name suggests, it's the use cases that power your applications, your search applications, right? Um, One of the reasons we did that is the sharding mechanism or the index lifecycle mechanism differs because of the needs each one have, right? So that's why we separated the collection types, so you can either select time series or go with search.
Okay.
Next we do is you have the encryption key. Again, a lot of customers came back and said, hey, they host their own customers, right? They're running a managed service themselves. So they want to have the flexibility to be able to bring in the customer's keys, right? So we do have that option. For this demo, I think we'll just go with the AWS own keys. And this is interesting. You can see that we already have a matching policy. And this is something unique. What we've done is we anticipate that you'll create a lot of collections. And you want a centralized place where you can actually manage all the policies. So you can create policies even before your collections are created, and you can give them either give wildcard policy or some prefix like auto star or something, or you could create policies right when we are creating the collections. So in this particular one, it went and matched the demo policy because I had collection demo star, if you see over here. So that also makes it easy. You can create everything. So when someone is coming to create a collection, all they have to do is just pick the encryption policy. And then, of course, the next thing that we talk about is the data access policy. Again, the data access policy is who can access your collections or your indexes, and what access are you going to provide them, right? So you select the principals and you have IAM. In this case, I'm just taking the dashboard user and my own username. And then we grant permissions, right? Which is the alias and the templates. It's one of the constructs in OpenSearch that you want to provide permissions for, and then you provide index permissions. Next, whether you want to attach this to an existing policy or you want to attach this to a new policy. So what I'm going to do is just attach it to an existing policy so that I have fewer policies now to configure and manage, right? And that's it. We're done.
And just like that.
Yeah. So within 5 minutes, you've created your collection. You really didn't have to pick any of your, the instance types, or you really didn't have to worry about, hey, how do I manage my
Shards.
shards?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just basically everything that stresses out an administrator of a logging tool that keeps them up at night, and
Right. Exactly.
or you might be the person that keeps the administrator up at night. Who knows? But no, this is really cool. Thank you for coming on and talking to us about this. This is, as someone that, works in the security realm where logging and providing, context to events and visualizing data and searching data is, my day to day. Something like this that can scale up with the demand of searching data, but then scale back down to provide cost optimized solutions. Sounds like a big win for everyone that needs to query data. And so thank you so much for your time on this.
No, you're welcome, and my pleasure. And thanks so much for inviting us over. So we were in preview up until day before yesterday. We went GA on the 25th, and I'd like to really thank our customers that have tried preview, given us feedback, And now we're off, all in GA, and looking forward to more feedback and developing upon this.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. You have a wonderful weekend and a great rest of your Friday. And
Thank you.
we'll keep an eye out on any new developments on OpenSearch. And I'm really excited to hear what the community does with this new serverless functionality.
Great. Thanks so much. And you, both of you, have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.